Well, hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Support Squad Real Talk. And I'm joined today by the lovely Claire. So I will hand over to Claire and get her to introduce herself.
Hello, Marianne. It's lovely to be here. I'm Claire Hersant. I run Voyant Design, which, well, actually 27 years now I've been in business. So graphic design, so all your branding, everything through all your marketing materials, and through to your websites as well. So that's me, really.
Brilliant. So I always like to start these like, how do we meet each other? How do we know each other?
Well, through networking. I think you've. So I've been networking for about 14 years now, and I'm a member of 4 of Barbara's groups. So I do 3 of the Your Business Matters and then the Connections Club. So you're at Connections Club. I think you visited a couple of business room meetings.
I did. When I was deciding whether I would join Connections Club or a business room, I came along to your business room in Northampton when it was at the pub that name escapes me, near the Saints, the Beckett, Thomas Beckett. When it was there.
Yes, I run that one. So yes, Connections Club is where we
so networking. So you know, just a little plug for networking, because you do meet lots of fabulous people when you're networking. It's all about building that rapport, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's so I get all my work from networking. I'd say 95% of my work comes through networking. It's about building relationships with people and getting to know people, and also finding the right people to work with as well. So, you know, it's just me and my business, but I have lots of people that I work with. Like, I can't think of the word.
we can come back to that. Partners, yes, but trusted partners. There is a particular word, isn't there? Barbara uses. I can't remember. Something partners. Yes, that's strategic. That's the word. Yeah. How could I forget that word? Anyway, so my next question that I'm asking all my guests is there sort of like a fun fact or an interesting thing about you that people perhaps wouldn't know that you can share with us?
Well, I played table tennis for the county. There you go. That's one.
Oh, now that's an unusual one. How did you get into that?
Well, so I used to play table tennis when I was a child, younger, you know, through my teenage years, and then sort of never played again. And then my boys wanted to. They said that they wanted to start playing table tennis, so I found a little club, and then obviously I started playing as well. And they were like, "Oh, you're all right, aren't you? You're quite good." And they sort of persuaded me to play for it was the veterans.
Doesn't matter. It's still playing for the county.
Not over 60 or anything. So yeah, I played a few times for Northamptonshire, but I was
Brilliant.
much better in practice than actually in.
Do you play tennis or I still don't understand the difference between pickle and paddle, but do you play any other sort of racket? Can I call table tennis a racket sport? You've got a bat, haven't you?
Well, yes, I suppose. I don't know if it's a racket sport officially. I play badminton. Well, again, my boys are brilliant badminton players, and I played for fun a little bit with some friends. But
well, there we go. Things you learn about people when you ask them a question. So I'm going to get on to sort of like the main sort of subject of today. So we're talking about sort of branding today. So my first question, what would you say is the biggest mistake that you see small business owners making when it comes to their branding?
Well, there's a few, but the main one really is not thinking about your target market. So when you're thinking about your branding, it should be about your target market, not about what you love. So, you know, I like pink, and if you're not, if your target audience is predominantly male, then that's not going to work. So it is important still in small businesses to think about personalities in the business as well, because especially if it's a one-man band, if it's startup businesses, you want to work with like-minded people. So it is important to sort of express that personality, but really you should be thinking about your target market. And the other thing is consistency. So being consistent with your branding is more important almost than the brand itself, because if people don't recognize things from one touch point to the next, they're never going to build. I always talk about brand awareness and how consistency builds brand awareness. So and there's a certain number of touch points that people need to see your brand, to understand it and recognize it. And if you're not consistent, then that's never going to happen.
I always sort of call it like visual identity when I'm talking about it from a LinkedIn perspective. It needs to look like you, and it needs to be recognizable. So when you appear in somebody's feed, they know it's you. They're like, oh yeah, that's Claire. Oh, that's Marianne. Yeah.
And like, so we've done your social media templates. So I set up templates for people so that are branded, and then like you say, you've got that recognition and consistency.
Yeah, I used one this morning.
Did you? Good. I'm so pleased. I love seeing all your stuff on LinkedIn. I always say it's like how children learn language. So with brand awareness and consistency. So a child before they can speak, they're like sponges, aren't they? And they're listening to words, and they'll hear a word in a certain context and they won't know what it means, but then they'll hear it again in another context, and then another context, and then they slowly build up a meaning around that word. And that's how vocabulary develops. And it's the same with your branding. So it's those touch points that need to be consistent.
There you go. You see, I didn't think about it like that. And then is there sort of like a simple thing somebody could do today to make a real difference to what they're doing?
Well, yes, it's around the consistency. So obviously having a set of brand guidelines is ideal, but not everybody, if you're sort of doing it yourself, if you're doing your branding yourself, not everybody wants to necessarily go to a graphic designer to get their brand guide. It's quite a simple, I would obviously recommend that, but that keeping your colors consistent and fonts as well. So even if you can just, once you've chosen your colors, obviously I use Photoshop and Illustrator to get all the color breakdowns. You've got CMYK and RGB, and then your hex codes of colors, which I give to all my clients when I'm doing their brand guidelines, all the different breakdowns. And having those breakdowns means that you can then be consistent across all your everything that you produce. But if you don't have those, you can do that yourself. You can, and I was actually looking this morning because I've got all the tools to do it, so I don't need to sort of use Google to, but I think I just put in finding a hex code of a color, and it came up with a imagecolorpicker.com, and you can go on there and you can pick the colors, and it'll give you all the different color breakdowns. So choose your colors and stick to the same colors. Use those color breakdowns or the hex codes depending on where you're using things. And the same with fonts. Choose a font that works. I mean, fonts is a whole another.
Well, we've got a bit on that coming, haven't we? So,
but write them down and make sure that anybody that's producing anything that is using your brand uses those same fonts and the same colors, and then that will automatically create that consistency.
Looks like you. Yeah, brilliant. So one of the things when we were chit-chatting about would you come on this live series was that Claire had done a really interesting presentation at one of these networking groups that we both go to together. And I asked Claire to pull some slides together to sort of talk us through. So I'm just going to bring them onto the stage. Sounds very formal. But Claire, if you would like to sort of talk through what you've pulled together, because I think this is going to be really helpful for people who want to sort of get better with their branding and know exactly what they should be doing.
Yeah, so I use a lot of psychology in my work. I did a psychology degree back in the day, sort of 30 odd years ago now, but and I use it in my work. So I've done loads of research around the psychology and subconscious messages that colors and fonts and shapes actually, but colors is the obvious one to think about. And the subconscious messages that they give us. So blue, for instance, here. So blue's really trusted. People think that it can be quite a boring color sometimes, but it's really trusted. It creates a sense of loyalty, and it's really professional. So, and I've just put some examples of sort of big brands that use blues that we trust. It is a great color, and obviously there's all sorts of different shades of blues. I could go on about colors for forever, but yeah, that's just an example of blue, for instance. If you go on to the next one, so red is a really, really strong color, and again, see, like the quite a lot of food and drink brands up there. It's really strong. It's associated with all the really powerful emotions like passion and danger and It's a stimulant, so it increases blood pressure, and that it makes you hungry. So that's why
I was just thinking, I'm feeling hungry. Is it nearly lunchtime?
It might be the Coca-Cola and Kellogg's and KFC that's up there, but they're using red for a good reason, because it's a stimulant and it makes you hungry. Yellow's the same as well. So it's a good color, but you have to use it really carefully, because it can be like too much red. It's a really good highlight color, but it's a great, if you want to like boost yourself, got their good for sales, it creates that. And that they do say that like waitresses that wear red make more money in tips. For instance. That's just don't quote me on that. I know I've said it live on LinkedIn, but and if you go to the next slide, then that's I think we've got yellow on here. I've put two together because otherwise we could be here forever. So yellow again is a stimulant, and it's if you think about all the fast food brands like McDonald's and Burger King and Pizza Hut, they all use red and yellow. And then I've got Toblerone at the top there as well. It's the first color that the human eye detects. So that's why it's linked to the motor industry as well. So number plates and it is the first color we detect. So it can be linked to optimism and warmth. Jealousy is again, it's a color to use with caution. And I put there at the bottom, makes babies cry. Don't paint your nursery bright yellow. Because it's that stimulant. Pale yellow is fine, but not bright yellow. And then orange obviously is a mixture of red and yellow. And I've got some examples. B&Q is one there. It's very modern. It's approachable. It's friendly. And I put budget at the bottom there. Now that's a chicken or egg thing, because they've got the likes of EasyJet
that's who I was thinking of when you said that.
And so people do associate it with budget, but which came first? I don't know. And obviously, again, it's a combination of red and yellow, so it is it's used by quite a lot of drinks brands and food brands as well. Tango.
It's interesting about the Toblerone being the red and yellow. If you'd asked me, I would have said red, but now it's there on the screen. I can see it's red and yellow, so that's really interesting. They combined the two. Do you want me to go on to the next one?
Yes. Yeah. So green is obviously, naturally you link it to the environment and health. It's used by quite a lot of finance companies. It's linked to growth, obviously. And I put Spotify at the top there. That's what sort of life and vitality. And again, different shades of green. So you've got your lime greens and your dark greens, which all will create different sort of feelings as well. It's important to use a mixture of colours, like going back to orange. The orange is good with grey, for instance, because grey has got that sort of calming influence that balances out the sort of the brightness of the orange. And purple is linked to luxury and Cadbury's the ultimate in indulgence.
You are trying to make me hungry, aren't you?
And it's not the purple itself that makes you hungry, it's the purple that's linked to the brand there that brings up those connotations. But it's very creative and it's linked to quality and obviously royalty as well. So
it's making me think of like rich velvet robe.
Yeah, it's good for niche brands and sort of if you're trying to sort of high-end brands is good for. And then if you go on to the next one, and then just the black and white. Don't forget about black and white, because black is really it's a really powerful color as well. So again, you've got the Chanel, Gucci, Prada up the top there. Really sort of exclusive brands use black. It's really sophisticated and powerful. And again, I put death at the bottom there because again, you do have to be a bit careful because it can have sort of like really dark connotations as well. And then white is a really, really important color. White space really creates a sense of calm and professionalism. It's really clean. So when you're thinking about anything, even with your LinkedIn posts, make sure you don't overcrowd things. White space is great. I think that's all. I think that's all that I've got on there on colors. And again, you've got your golds and silvers and bronzes.
You've got two more.
Oh, have I? What's on? Oh, yes. Yes, fonts. Fonts are just as important as colors. they are a little bit more sort of understated. People don't really notice fonts, or they don't think they notice fonts, but actually they have a massive influence on us. So the two main ones I've got here are serif fonts, which have got the little tails on the ends of the words. They're much more traditional and authoritative, whereas the sans serif, which are much more modern, they're cleaner. I love sans serif fonts, but again, if you've got, you can use a combination of both as well. So you could, if your target market is predominantly sort of 50 to 50-year-old men, for instance, but you might want to use a serif font, but you could balance that out with using a sans serif font as well to sort of create that a bit more.
Yeah, I think in one of my LinkedIn templates, which is I use a sort of like forgetting my words today, like a header for a carousel.
Yeah.
I've got the lead is sort of like the sans serif, and then at the bottom there's like a serif,
a script
sort
font.
of a script font, yeah,
which is more of a handwritten font, which is really nice to bring sort of that sort of personalization. It feels like somebody's talking to you a bit more than your more traditional fonts. You have to be a bit careful with using those and use them sparingly, because they can sometimes be harder to read.
Yeah.
So you need to think about that when you're using them.
I always make sure it's not too small, so it's you can read it.
And then I think the next slide is just an example of, so I've used this in presentations before, so you can use the same word in different fonts. That, like the one at the top there is I'm a big corporate company, and then the sort of the rounded font makes it, you know, very approachable and friendly, and then you've got sort of the spreading it out and using a uppercase is sort of exclusive and you know, like your luxury brands, and then you're really old-fashioned, like I've been around for years and I really know what I'm talking about. So
it's really
all different sort of connotations.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how just the font, because you were saying a few minutes ago that people forget about fonts, but just this one slide just really hammers it home, doesn't it? Because I'm sort of thinking, oh yeah, I can see a brand in my mind's eye that uses that kind of font. Yeah, it's really powerful.
Yeah, so and again, fonts are so important, and being consistent with fonts, people don't necessarily think about that so much. They'll just use any fonts, but that really creates that consistency as well if you use the same fonts.
And what about if you're mixing fonts with colors? I was just going to scroll back. So for example, you know, where Chanel or Gucci or Prada have got a particular font, is there do you have sort of fonts that you were like, no, that doesn't work with a particular color, or does it?
No, there's not really, there's no sort of hard and fast rules, and it's a balance between. So if you've got sort of a more traditional serif font, for instance, you can balance that with a more modern color. So it is about looking at all the different elements and the messages that you're trying to get across as well. I remember once I was doing a brand for I think they were sports coach, and their target market wasn't not just the teams, the players in the teams, the youngsters. It was the sort of 50-year-old men that are running the clubs, and so it was getting a balance of the two. So we used both. You know, I used the sans serif and the serif font, even in the brand itself. So getting those different messages across in different ways. And there's, like I say, there's no hard and fast rules. Important to think about it and think about your target market.
Now, we've had a question pop up, which I'm going to put on the screen, but it's quite a long question, so I'm not sure if it's going to fit, but we'll have a little look. Oh, yes, it does. There we go. So from Natalie, so this is, I didn't actually see this. So she asked this, I think, before we started talking, bringing up the slide. So where we were talking about, well, you said, you know, sometimes somebody wants to use their favorite color, and the example you'd used was like if somebody wanted to perhaps use pink and their target audience was sort of middle-aged men, it might not necessarily resonate. So Natalie's asking about, what do you do if somebody is determined to use their favorite color, for example?
Well, like I said, it's a balance. So if and in small businesses particularly, as I said, it's really important to get your personality across, and you have to love your brand as well. So if there is a particular color that people want to use, I will always, when I'm working up concepts, I will always focus mainly on that color. And there are ways of bringing other sort of connotations and feelings into the brand without, you know, with even if that particular color wouldn't necessarily be a color I'd recommend, you can balance it with other elements. And like I say, you have to love your brand, and you want to work with like-minded people. So, you know, it needs to have your personality in it as well, especially for small businesses. For bigger businesses, obviously the target market is much more important than what you like.
Yeah.
I was talking to I went into a meeting with, and she brought out this, it was sort of pink fluffy. It wasn't just pink, it was pink fluffy clip arty, and I love all this. What do you think? And I'm are you predominantly targeting women? She said, no. I said, well, you're going to alienate half of your target market, and actually probably alienate half of the female market as well, because it was pink. Pink is good to use in moderation. It's a great color to use.
I always think of it as an accent color.
Yeah, I like
perhaps
color.
Not the right word, but yeah.
Yeah. So yes, there are ways around it, and you do need to love it yourself. So it is important to think about that.
Great question. Thank you, Natalie. Just hold on. There's another question, or it could be a comment. Let's see what it. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you, Natalie, for asking a question. There we go. Okay. So I'll just have a quick note. There aren't any other questions or comments. So, is there something that you wish more people understood about your role? You know, are there any sort of myths you wanted to perhaps bust? You know, when somebody comes to work with you, there's something that they, you know, you think, oh, they don't understand that.
I think it's just thinking. I don't think people realise how much goes into creating a brand, and it's the, you know, because it's more than just a logo as well. So people are like, oh, this is the logo that we've created. They think, you know, that happens in 5 minutes. Well, it doesn't. So it's all the thinking behind it, and I'll do usually too many concepts, and then with the feedback from those, then we'll go through developments of the brand, and then onto the final branding. And so it's quite a long and in-depth process that people think just that's I suppose that's what I'd like to, you know, people to understand a bit more, and the thinking and the psychology behind it as well, because it's branding that's effective, and to be effective you need to be using the right, you know, it needs to work and sending the right messages.
Absolutely. And then when's sort of the right time to bring someone like you into a business?
Well, ideally right at the beginning. Obviously that is ideal, and the startups don't always have the budget to do that, which is fine, and there's so many tools available now that people can use that so they can do sort of a DIY job. I tend to I think my last one-to-one before lockdown was a girl that she was doing yoga classes, and I didn't think she came to me to talk about branding, and I didn't think she would want to invest, but actually she was come from a corporate background, so she understood how important it was to get it right in the first place, and she went ahead with it. And you know, it means that you're more successful early on because you've got that professional image and the consistency, and then obviously, but if you decide not to do that, or you do it yourself, then sort of a couple of years down the line, I mean, actually it costs more money to do it later because you've got more to change rather than getting it done in the first place. Like,
yeah, no, that's an interesting way of sort of describing it. I mean, do you know, where you're talking to clients, do you have sort of like packages, for example? So if somebody really understands, yes, I need to work with Claire, but I haven't got an all singing, all dancing budget, is there something that perhaps they should prioritize initially and then come back to you for later on?
Yes, I have packages for startups, branding packages, and then I've got sort of social media template packages as well. But yes, it's the branding and the brand guidelines, and I include the brand guidelines in the package as well. It's for the startup businesses as simple as a single-sided A4 with all the color breakdowns, the fonts, and how to use the backgrounds that you can use your logo on, for instance. And yeah, that's the sort of the basic package, and then you can add on to those with, you know, letterhead designs and just the basics that you need, email footers, and that create that professionalism. So yes, that's the most important.
Yeah, brilliant. And then is it, I mean, I think you've perhaps answered this, but I don't know whether you've got another example where you were talking about the yoga studio lady, but is there a sort of a story or an example of someone that you've helped and the difference that it's made for them?
Well, my favourite story is my son, actually. So my middle son, and I don't think I told him about this, so he's probably not listening. But he's got a full-time job, 2 children, and renovating a house. But he's got a side business. He makes products for ant farming. Yes, ant farming.
Okay, right.
And he started selling on Amazon and Etsy, and then he said, "Oh, Mum, will you build me a website?" And so I did all his branding for him. Obviously, having a mum to help is a massive advantage on that side of things. But, sort of bit of a bank of mum. But so all his branding and, you know, built him a professional website and an e-commerce website, and he's doing amazingly well, brilliantly well. And I would say it's because of your professional branding. Obviously, his business aptitude is quite paramount too, but it's a really, really good example of doing it right at the beginning, because people, you know, he's selling products online and they need to trust the website as well.
Yeah.
So they need to trust.
That's a really good example, and that leads me on to you could have already given me the answer. Is like, what's the sort of most unusual sort of company that you've worked with in terms of like the brand? Because I mean, ant farming must be quite up there in terms of unusual clients. But
I wasn't prepared for this question, but apart from
no, I know, sorry.
I did a logo once, a long time ago, years and years ago, for a oh God, and I've forgotten the word now. Oh, a London dominatrix. She's a dominatrix.
Oh, wow. Now that must have been really interesting doing the research.
And she didn't have any money to spend. And the person that had introduced me, I said, "Well, how much does she charge an hour?" And it was £180. It's probably a lot more now. And so I thought, right, I'll do it for £180 for you, and I'll spend an hour or so on it. But no, I spent a bit longer on it than that. But it was, yeah, that was quite an interesting one. That's probably the most unusual. Yeah. Ant farming.
Yeah, no, sorry for flowing it in, but it's sort of, you know, when you were talking about the ant farming, I was like, oh, there must be something. Yeah. But I love that. So and then I was just going to say, like, you know, the usual bit, like, where can people find you? So I was going to here's your website. Anything you want to say about the website when people come onto the website?
No, everything says examples of my work on there and my approach. Natalie actually did the words for my website for me.
Shout out, Natalie.
And yes, so and growing the website of the business as well, and doing more websites as well. So obviously, it's really important that mine is seamless and beautiful.
It's a good example. Yeah.
So I spent quite a lot of time on getting that right. Good. Yeah.
And then we are live on LinkedIn. Claire is also on LinkedIn. I do need to talk to you, Claire, about removing your numbers on the end. I was doing a training this morning, so we'll talk about that offline. And then Claire's email address is here, obviously. So her business is Voyant Design, and then her email is very seamless. I didn't like StreamYard has changed the A to nice fancy at. So
Claire,
apologies.
Voyant's a play on words. It's like that goes with the links to the psychology side of things. I can see into your future, clairvoyant. I'm not a clairvoyant.
I didn't miss that. That's fascinating, because I love understanding what the story to people's businesses. So there we go. We've learned something new. So let me just check. I don't think there's been any other questions, no, just comments about enjoying it. So that's great. Well, I will end us there. So thank you everybody for joining us live. And if you're watching on playback, hello, and thank you for watching. And we'll end it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Nice to see you.